Hey, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co., and these are the top 10 games of 2024. Definitively. Absolutely. With no question, except for the fact that 2024 is not yet over. I haven't played all the games of 2024, and even then, these are obviously in my opinion. But with that said, here are my top 10 games of 2024, at least so far. Although before we get into the 10, we have some extras that we're going to talk about that aren't included in those 10, and we have two categories of games that I want to get kind of special mentions to. The first are 5 games that I think would absolutely be potentially eligible to be in my top 10, but I haven't really played them since the final games have arrived, and in one case the final game is not even here yet, and so I'm not putting them on the list because I feel playing a prototype years ago doesn't count the same way as actually playing the finished game. And so those 5 games are going to be Unconscious Mind, which isn't even here yet, but I have to imagine would be in my top 10. We have Stalker the board game, which was incredible from Awakened Realms, but I haven't played the game since it showed up. I've only played the prototype. We have Rise and Fall, another game that I only played the prototype, but I loved it. And then we have Endeavor Deep Sea. That one might be a little bit out. I'm not sure if that would be just in my top 10 or not, but it's definitely one that would be eligible. But again, I've only played the prototype. I said 5 because the 5th one is one that I haven't played the prototype, but would technically count, which is Cthulhu Death May Die, Fear of the Unknown. The final version of that game hasn't shown up yet. I have the original Cthulhu Death May Die. I have not had the new content, so I can't include that. But these are 5 games that are definitely amazing, incredible, or at least my experiences with the prototypes were, and so I definitely recommend them, but they're not going to be in this video. There's also going to be 4 others that I'm not going to heavily dive into. These are not 2024 titles, which is why I'm putting them as an extra or an adjacent, but they're games that I think should be eligible. We have Sankori, which I put in my top 10 of last year, but technically it's a 2024 title. I just happened to play it in 2023. We have Shuffleboard, which is a very, very old game that I happened to discover properly in 2024. We have Cusco, which I think is another 2023 title that's not a 2024 title. So again, Cusco and Sankori are opposites. Sankori is a 2024 title that I put in my best games of 2023, and Cusco is a 2023 title that I only played in 2024, the Queen Games version of Cusco, the re-implementation of Bora Bora. And then lastly, Marvel United Multiverse, which is just another Marvel United, so I'm hesitant to put that in my top 10. But again, these are all my 9 special shoutouts before we get to our top 10. Which brings us to our top 10, the top 10 games of 2024, and there's gonna be a big mix of big, large, and medium titles in this rating. And I will say I rank them kind of trying to take into account the overall how much I enjoy them as well as how easy they are to table. Meaning there are some games that are better, that are lower down the list, but if I'm not going to play them as often because they're harder to table, they definitely got dinged on points. So this is kind of rating them as a package deal, how much I appreciate everything about them. Starting off with number 10, which is definitely an easy game to table because number 10 is Confusing Lands. Confusing Lands is a delightful small box game coming to you from Envy Born Games that gives you a 2-player, and there's a solo mode as well. I play this primarily 2-player, in which you're going to be drafting cards and then placing those cards down into your grid to either create new scoring conditions or fulfill scoring conditions, often both. And you're trying to balance the limited number of cards you're going to get to be able to add to your grid. There's only a handful of cards you can actually add, while trying to figure out as many points as you can get within that system, and the variety of scoring goals, the variety of ways you can play the cards. This to me is just such an easily tableable game. I wish it came like a small wallet. I think a wallet would be better for this. I want a Confusing Lands wallet because I really want to lean into the travel friendliness of this. But this is a game that I play so often because it's just that easy to pull out. It's one of those games that's just a rewarding time because of the ease of teach, the ease of play, how quickly it plays, how easy it is to table, and then the fact that it's so rewarding because you're constantly trying to pick these cards and try to balance, like, do I get a little greedy? Do I add a goal? Because every time you add a goal, you deduct an automatic 10 points, which means if you're not going to score more than 10 points from a goal, you're actually costing yourself, well, points or opportunity cost of what you could have done instead. So Confusing Lands, an excellent game. Highly recommend picking this up if you like any form of point scoring combinations, as well as the small box accessibility and the price point to go with it. Coming at number 9, we have another game that's slightly larger, but same kind of game type. We have Harmonies. Another game about trying to figure out your best ways of scoring points. Another one about trying to fulfill your goals. You see, in Harmonies, you're going to be trying to draft, every round you draft 3 tokens that will go into your grid. And those tokens will get inherent ways of scoring points. So mountains will score points the higher they are, as long as they're next to mountains. And you have that for all the terrain types, a scoring rule that operates around those terrain types. But in addition to that, you're gathering cards. You see, every round you're trying to draft these cards and then trying to fulfill certain patterns of the way these terrain types develop, of these biomes that form, in order to go ahead and habitat those biomes. So when you gather a card, you'll place tokens onto the card, and when you fulfill the scoring requirements, you'll take the tokens off the card, place them onto your biomes, and score points. And so the way you build everything is ideally creating this perfect harmony, hence the name of the box over here, hence the name of the game. But Harmonies has got great table presence. It's very satisfying to play, lots of replayability to it. Overall, Harmonies has been one of those games that has really been doing an excellent job at this genre. This is a genre, full of games like Calico and whatnot, and this one is one of my new favorites within that genre. That's going to be Harmonies. Coming at number 8, we have one of the better games on this list, but it is slightly harder to table. That's going to be The Elder Scrolls Betrayal of a Second Era. Elder Scrolls is leaning into everything Chip Theory knows how to do. They master Too Many Bones, one of my favorite games of all time, and The Elder Scrolls builds on that DNA very loosely. It's a very different game, but it definitely shares some DNA as far as the dice management system, as far as the intricacy of the way you build your characters, as far as the exploration of the game as you wander on these journeys, moving around the map, having encounter after encounter, as you build out characters larger and larger, adding more skill trees, more abilities, more everything as you power up across the 3 arcs of the game. It is not the shortest game. You can play it across 3 arcs. Each arc can be long. I believe the game time they aim for is definitely in that 3 to 4 hour range, if not less, per arc. For me personally, I've definitely found it on the longer end, but it's one that when you do sit down and table it, the time flies because it is so much fun to build your character, expand upon how your characters are going to have their little pathway in the universe. Are you leaning into spell casting, a little bit of melee, a little bit of bow and arrow range? How defensive are you going? Are you building to be able to take those hits, or are you building to be able to dish out as much raw magic as possible? There are so many skill trees in the game. There are so many classes. There's so much variability to the way you can build the characters. Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era is my number 8 game of 2024. Coming in at number 7, we have one that really went up for me. This is why I don't put games in until I finally get a chance to play them, because Skyrise from Rocksteady Games was a game that I really enjoyed when I played the prototype. I've played the original Metropolis way back when, and Skyrise was a better version of Metropolis. And this is one that, ever since having tabled it again and again, after finally getting the final version of the game, it's only gone up, in my opinion. I believe when I ranked this originally during the prototype phase, I gave it a 4 to 5, and since playing the final game, it's gone up to a 4.5 for me already. Every single time I table this game, I have an excellent experience of trying to figure out how to outbid my opponents, how to bid around the board as I create those scoring patterns, as I try to be mindful of all the ways you're getting points in this game, in order to just kind of be a little cutthroat, but also work my own little plans in there. You see, Skyrise is all about bidding, but when you outbid your opponent, you're not outbidding for the thing that they were on. Rather, you have to outbid and move the token to a new area of the neighborhood, which was also this interesting little puzzle, because if something's worth a lot of points, something I have to choose is something else going to be worth points, because in order to outbid, I also have to shift what is being bid on. It's an interesting system to play through. But we got beautiful production value, combined with beautiful art, combined with solid gameplay that has been tweaked and refined, and gameplay that is simple to actually understand, teach, and play, while being incredibly intricate and rewarding in the decision space that you are taking as you play this. Skyrise has only gone up more and more as I've continued to play the final game. It's my number 7 game of 2024. My number 6 is going to be another small box game, although we have some more coming as well. We have Faraway from Pandasaurus Games. Faraway has continued to be a great game every single time I play it, and I continue to play it. This is one that I keep diving into again and again and again, because it's so easy to just pull it out as another filler game. Let's just get another game of Faraway in. Let's just go ahead and draft a few more cards, build out a little chaining sequence, and see how many points we got out of this engine. It's one of those filler games that continues to deliver a good time every single time I play it, and I keep coming back for more, and it hasn't gotten boring yet. This is a game that I've played easily 30, 40 times, if not more, since getting it. It's just one of the better fillers I have in my collection right now. It's an excellent game. You can try it on Board Game Arena if you haven't already. The core premise is you're basically drafting 8 cards throughout the game. Not drafting, it's open drafting, but you're trying to gather 8 cards that you're going to be building out a pathway. Those 8 cards, as you go through the pathway, you have to try to figure out the order of the cards, because you might be able to get extra cards if you play them in the right order. But then the problem is, as you're done your pathway, you're going to flip all the cards over and then score them in reverse order of the way you built them out. And the problem is, everything scores based off of wanting to see things on cards, but you have to realize you're building them in reverse order, which means you're flipping cards in reverse order the way you built them, and so you're trying to think through how you're going to score for the things that come later, how you're going to build scoring criteria for what's coming in the order of play. It's a very simple game to actually see played out once you get it. It's a little quirky to explain it, but watching it actually played out takes 2 seconds, and the nice part is the game only lasts a few minutes, and so you can go ahead and dive straight back in now that players know how the game operates. It is easily my go-to filler. Well, I guess depends how you count it. I think this is more a filler. This is more of a 2-player game. It's a 2-player filler. They're both fillers. Either way, Faraway, one of my favorite games of 2024. Coming in number 5, we have another more medium-sized box over here, and that's going to be Slay the Spire, although medium might be the wrong terminology. Slay the Spire, coming to you from Contention Games, is another incredible game. This is an adaptation of the Slay the Spire video game, and it does an incredible job at delivering the Slay the Spire experience to your tabletop. It manages to maintain the magic of the original game. It manages to make it accessible and easily tapeable. There's a little bit more cleanup than you might otherwise want compared to just hitting restart run, and it's definitely more expensive than buying Slay the Spire, and you can't play it on your tablet or phone or device or Steam Deck, whatever it is, compared to the way you could play Slay the Spire. So there are a lot of things holding this back from the simplicity of the original game, but if you want to Slay the Spire in a tabletop form, this absolutely delivers. It does such a great job maintaining that feel of the game, being a satisfying experience, and letting you play Slay the Spire multiplayer if that's your jam. And so Slay the Spire over here, this was such an incredible adaptation of the original video game, a rewarding experience, and one that you should check out if you're a hardcore fan, but also understand this one comes with a bit of a cautionary aspect that it is expensive and has downsides compared to just playing the original game, and so it's not going to be a game that's for everyone. Some people are going to be like, well, I'm fine with the original game. And if that's your first thought, I recommend just sticking with the original game. But if you're someone who sees this and thinks, no, I want to try the tabletop version, I don't think it'll disappoint. I think it's going to deliver. It is an excellent game. That is Slay the Spire, the board game from Contention Games, my number 5 game of 2024. My number 4 is going to be our last small box filler, although again, we still have medium and large coming. Our last small box from number 4 is going to be Things and Rings from All Play. This is a game that the first time I played it, I found it charming, compelling, easy to table, easy to teach, easy to play. This has become my new favorite gateway game. I don't know if it's my favorite game. I don't know if it's my favorite of all time gateway game, but it's definitely up there amongst my favorite gateway games. And it's a game that can be played with kids, with gateway gamers, with friends, with hardcore board gamers. It can be played as much as you want, as little as you want. My one complaint is the 2-player game is not great. It's okay. It's tolerable. I've done the 2-player game. I've gone back to the 2-player game because sometimes I just want to play Things and Rings. But this is a deduction game in which you have one player who's playing as the kind of the clue giver, the mastermind, who's in control of making sure everything goes smoothly, and they're trying to guide the other players to figure out who can be the first to figure out the patterns. You see, you're placing things in rings. The rings are going to be different things that determine either like an attribute or something to do with the spelling of the word or its place in society, and those are all going to be things that players are going to sit there and place a little pretzel down to the board, and the player's going to move the pretzel from one ring to another ring, which means you may have gotten it wrong because maybe the wording word was, has a double letter in it, and pretzel doesn't have a double letter, so it's not going to be in the yellow ring. And maybe the wooden ring maybe the blue ring was made of wood, and pretzels are not made of wood, fortunately, and so it got moved out of the blue ring. But as things are placed down into the rings, players can start to find those common criteria to figure out what is actually the rule of the rings. So it's a little bit trying to figure out those patterns by looking at what's being put into the rings, by looking at what's being moved out of the rings, and they're trying to empty your own hand of cards before the other players. Because every time you get it right, you go ahead and get rid of a card and you play again. Every time you get it wrong, you draw a replacement card and your turn is over. And so the faster you can figure it out, the quicker you can get rid of your cards and the quicker you can win in this very easy to table, delightful little game, Things and Rings. Coming in number 3, we have Lord of the Rings, The Duel for Middle-earth. This is a re-implementation of Seven Wonders, Seven Wonders Duel, specifically, not Seven Wonders, Seven Wonders Duel. This taking the Lord of the Rings theme and placing it onto that game and managing to be incredibly true to everything that makes Seven Wonders Duel great, while also adding things that add a nice level of flavor to the original game. So you have they really need a strong flavor implementation of the way you're either trying to get the ring, or you're trying to get control of Middle-earth, or you're trying to get the favor of the various clans of Middle-earth. And you're trying to lean into these different pathways. Which pathway to a victory is going to be your pathway to victory as you draft these cards, trying to be mindful of which cards you let your opponent take and which cards you get your hands on. It did a great job at maintaining everything that made Seven Wonders Duel great, while managing to maintain its own flavor. Not everything about the game is perfect. There are some steps back from the original Seven Wonders, but there's also some steps forward, and so overall, it's just a package deal of a game that easily has a place in my collection. Seven Wonders, Lord of the Rings, The Duel for Middle-earth is my number 3 game of 2024. My number 2 game of 2024 is one that I absolutely love and cannot get enough of, and that is Spectacular. I love Spectacular. From Chili Fox Games, this is one that gives you drafting, in which you're going to be drafting dice as well as tokens in order to place them down into your zoo. The more animals you put into the zoo, the more points you get. The more dice you put into the zoo, the more points you get. The right combination of points and animals is going to be how you figure out whether you win the game. You see, every round you're dealing with your own tiles and your own dice, as well as a common pool of tiles and dice that will be drafted from player to player. And every round you're going to be taking one from the common pool and one from your own and trying to place them into your zoo in order to get as many points as possible through placing the low numbers on the birthing spots, placing higher numbers on other spots, trying to build towers through linked areas. But every single round you're constantly torn between being pulled in so many different directions that's going to be very, very hard to figure out what the right movement forward is. But the main thing about Spectacular that I enjoy is every single time I play this game, I feel like I could do it just a little bit better. It's so satisfying. I get a solid amount of points. I feel like I did well, but I also feel like I still have more to discover about the game, and so I keep diving back into it. Spectacular from Chili Fox is easily one of my favorite games of 2024. And my favorite game of 2024 is one that might not be a surprise to those of you who follow the channel and have heard me talk about this game a lot. And it's also worth noting that despite the box size I'm about to show you, it's still my #1 game, because I do take accessibility into account when I rank games. How likely am I to pull that game off the shelf and table it? And this is not the easiest game to table, but it's so good that I don't care, and it's my #1 game of 2024, and that is going to be Primal: The Awakening. Primal: The Awakening is incredible. Ever since I first played the prototype years and years ago, through waiting for years and years for the game to arrive, it was definitely very overdue. Primal delivered incredible gameplay, excellent card play, a variety in monsters and how they operate and act, an accessible campaign that is not too long but also not too short, giving you enough time to grow and build your characters and feel those builds and try to play and mess around with things. Expansions that easily incorporate when you want to dive back in for new characters or new monsters or new entire forges and different types of weapons you're going to have access to. Primal is one of the better card play experiences that I've enjoyed, and it gives you a challenging cooperative game or solo game of trying to take down these monsters in either one-shot modes that are already pretty rewarding, or alternatively the campaign mode, which is accessible and easy to dive into. This is my favorite boss battler of all time, and my #1 game of 2024 is Primal: The Awakening. And that is my best games of 2024 video, my favorite 10 games of 2024, along with 9 other throw-ins of different categories, just to make sure we have a full complement of games. Until next time, I'm Alex Radical from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, I hope you have a good one.